Okay, I want to take two other different scenarios that I hear all the time, and I'm sure with the thousands of people that you've worked with, you've heard before too. So, as a life coach, I get people, a career coach, who are like, I can't go to my job anymore. Like, this is a meaningless endeavor. Every day I go to my job, I feel a little part of me is dying off. And so there's a, how do I find my purpose? How do and oftentimes as people have fear of change, financial fears, and it causes a lot of stress. So what is that? So if you use the 4 A's in that moment when you're like, I just can't go to this job anymore, it's killing me, what do you think, based on working with people, what is the awareness that they're needing to identify?
Well, I think that everyone needs to know, unless you actually are a slave, which is illegal, but you have a choice. You can always quit your job. Now, I'm not telling you to quit your job, but knowing you can quit your job, that should allow you to then say, how do I create the most nourishing environment for me?
Mm,
If it's like, hey, I'd like to take a break every couple of hours and just stand up and walk around, and they go, no, you must stay there and do that. Like, well, gee, unless you're paying me like $1 million a year, there's probably a lot of abusive jobs out there that aren't paying a lot.
right.
So I could probably get one of them as well. So
Okay.
you know, it's just it comes from a place of self worth.
Right.
We have to realize, you know what? I may not like the job, but my circumstances are pretty good. I'm treated very well. Either I have health care through the company, or they give me training and development, or they let me leave early once in a while, or I don't have to think about work over the weekend. Something along those lines.
Right. So you're appreciating using your model. So you're aware, like, hey, I'm appreciating. It's not like a zero sum game. I'm getting something out of this.
Right. Well, and that's another thing. If we show up, everything we show up for, and I don't mean to say everything, but really most things that we show up for, where we're like, what can I get out of this? What's in this for me?
Hmm.
Um, well, how would you ever see what the beauty and magic of that is
Hmm.
if that's really all you're looking for or asking?
Hmm.
And so turning that model on its head just once in a while to ask yourself, how can I serve others? How can I help others? How can I heal others? Not to be altruistic, but if we can do that, oh, and by the way, using our own special gifts, our own talents, then it's a win-win.
Yeah, but often
So,
I hear, but here's the thing. Most of the time, the complaint I hear is the reason why I'm feeling like this job is meaningless is I can't use my talents.
right. Okay. So that's why your dharma or purpose doesn't always have to be your job.
Ah,
If
okay.
that was the case, everyone would be quitting every 15 minutes, right? They'd be going, no, my purpose is this. Okay, forget it. And so that's why you want to cultivate that little special, magnificent piece of you. Maybe start off, ask yourself, where's my passion? What
Mm-hmm.
do I love to do? I think I'll do that maybe once a month or twice a month or on a weekend or after work, or I'll take a day off and I'll do this thing. What causes spark you? What
Mm-hmm.
things make you, have fun?
Right.
Um, maybe you don't have a radio show, but that doesn't mean you can't make guided meditations like I
Right.
do.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't do an audio blog or a video blog. Maybe you can start writing a book. Maybe you want to serve at the local hospice or the local shelter or the local animal sanctuary. This is where we start to at least live a micron of what it is you love, and then
Okay.
see if at a certain point you're like, hey, you know what? I'll make less money, but I'll be really happy. I think I'm ready to
Uh,
make the switch. And that could be 5 years
mm,
from now. Or, you know what? I think I can balance both. I do this thing for the money. The environment is nice. I like the people I work with. It's not really fulfilling at any level. But then when I leave there, they give me the space to do all this other work that I do find fulfilling.
okay. So I hear two different solutions. One is, hey, you know what? experience what it is to master your needs, right? Because that's what it is.
Yes.
It's, I love working with animals. I love, and then once you can do that, then and like, I'm happy, master your emotions. I'm happy working with animals. I
Right.
like working with these kind of animals versus the animals at work. So I'm going to leave, right? Or you say, how can I balance the two? I mean, how can I balance the two? So I heard two potential strategies that people take. Now, you yourself, you were actually in an environment like that. Were you in a corporate environment, but not necessarily?
I was in the corporate world. I
Okay.
worked in New York City, worked in the
Okay.
World Trade Center. I was in mergers and acquisitions, fairly serious and soulless, at least that for for
Wow. Okay.
for me. And but I didn't know. I didn't know that there were tools. I just certainly didn't have any tools, and I didn't know that there were tools. So, I just blew up my life, and I stress to people, there's no need to blow up your. I blew up my life. I headed off to India. My whole eat, pray, love thing without the eating and the love. Um, yeah. And so, but I stress to people, you don't have to quit your job and you don't have to go over to India. I've already done that for you. You
Right.
can actually stay home and say, I'm going to make my 6 month plan so
Right.
that when you do leave, I jumped and hoped the net would appear. It did, but 14 months later, and 14 months is a long time to, to not have a job and to not have nourishment and to be disappointing those people in your life who are counting on you for some level of stability. So I would say find that little spark of your passion. Start to move in that direction and then see where it leads. I'm a
Hmm.
big advocate of taking a step, even if it's a step into fire, and going, whoa, that doesn't feel good. I'll never step into fire again. But I'm not a fan of sitting on the couch and just closing your eyes and meditating and hoping you'll manifest something special. I think you got
Please. Yeah,
you
exactly.
got to take the step. I'm a fan of taking steps, and then as you step in life, you respond. Oh, this is better than I thought it was, or that's not really as satisfying as I thought it might be. So,
Okay. I'm going to go back to the thing you said. You blew, like, what's wrong with blowing up? And you mentioned why, but don't you think that sometimes for some people, blowing up is part of their path?
oh, absolutely, and I wouldn't change a thing. But there are people who got singed in my fire of transformation.
Ah, okay. Got it.
So that's all. You know,
Okay.
I would say, oh, gee, uh, given the chance to do it again, I absolutely would. Well, I don't think you get the chance to ever like
Do it
do it
again.
again.
But
But I
most
learned
people
from
are
that.
risk
I
averse, right?
realized it was very, very selfish on my behalf. I wasn't really thinking how's this going to impact, my family, people in
Right.
my life. Um, Not my workmates. I wasn't really too concerned about them, but
Right.
the people who were supporting me and rooting for me
Yeah.
suddenly were like, "Do you haven't worked like in 6 months? What's going to happen here?" So
Right.
it's really coming from a place like that
Ah, okay, got it.
that I
It's the
really
kind of the two mastering your communications, that part
yes,
of that was missing. And had you been conscious, like, hey, like what's happening? How am I going to communicate this to people and be real with what's happening so they
right.
understand versus maybe, feel like an explosion happened and they're
And it
standing
was an
outside.
explosion for me because it was in the wake of 9/11. I was in a fight flight response at that time. I was
Mm,
not feeling nourishment from what I was doing, and I was miserable. So I
yeah.
was like, oh, well, obviously I need to blow up my life and then see what happens. So I think we all need to lean in the direction of our dreams. I think we need to
Mm,
take steps. And sometimes that step, we reach our hand out someplace and it's like, oh, okay, didn't know that. But I
right.
wouldn't have known it if I hadn't reached.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, when they say, I'll say like, so where are you? Why don't you start writing down all the things you love to do?
Mm,
And they're like, well, I'm so confused of my purpose in life, but they're not writing.
right.
So you even have to put pen to paper. You have to start moving the energy, move stuff out of your head into the tangible, world.
Okay, we talked about the car, which is kind of a day in day experience. We talk about people at work, and then I wanted to go through the third
Mhm.
stressors, which is the major transitions in life. You have loss of job, loss of relationship, uh, something new is happening, a major transition. You're moving. These are all kind of like transitional points, and those kind of stresses are they're different. right? Those are different kinds of stress. Because you've lost your identity in a lot of ways, you've lost the structure, you may have lost your dreams. So you're kind of in what you call the gap in your videos. How do you deal with being in the gap? How do you use your model and be in the gap?
I'm a realist, and and I believe in all sorts of kooky stuff, but I live in the real world here, and everyone that I work with, whether they're in law enforcement, special forces, whether they just recently were diagnosed or just got dumped, um, we live in the real world.
Right.
A lot of these ancient teachings that guide us were written by monks who did not have to worry about like college tuition and cancer diagnoses and trying to pay the rent. They just weren't. So there's a little more freedom for them to say, just keep surrendering to the divine light.
Right.
We have to actually pay
Right.
attention. So
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.